Iran launched a fresh wave of attacks on Gulf countries today that included the United Arab Emirates. According to the defense ministry there, more than 1,700 missiles and drones have been fired toward the UAE since the war began. And 11 days into this conflict, there are no signs of a let-up. So how are Gulf nations feeling about Iran's retaliation? For that, we've reached Mina Al-Oraibi in Abu Dhabi. She's the editor-in-chief at the national and Abu Dhabi-based media outlet. Mina, thank you for making time for us today.
Thanks for having me, Arti.
First, I want to ask, why do you think Iran is continuing to strike Gulf nations? What is it hoping to achieve with the targets?
It's hard to understand the thinking in Tehran at the moment, given the amount of commanders that have been taken out, the change in the leadership. What we've understood is that the command and control structures in Tehran are not as coherent as they used to be, given all the attacks on their leadership. But what was agreed before the war is that maximum damage should be inflicted on the neighborhood and, of course, maximum damage on areas that would be of significance globally. Of course, the Gulf is not only important because of its energy resources, hugely important, but also logistics hubs, the beacon that is the Gulf for many people in the region, for many Arabs and others globally who come and move here and live here. It is globalization that actually works that is under attack at the moment. What they're hoping to achieve is really to inflict maximum pressure on the U.S., and I would assume through that on Israel also, to end the war, and also a sense of putting pressure on the Arab neighbors. The reaction here in the Gulf is a real sense of betrayal by Iran, the fact that the Gulf countries had worked very hard to avoid this war, but also made sure not to allow the American bases that are here to be used to launch the attack on Iran. And yet still, Tehran, it seems, the calculation of those who are calling the shots is to inflict maximum damage that they can.
You know, certainly when we're looking at some of the targets, I'm seeing the reports now that the UAE oil giant Abu Dhabi National Oil Company has shut down a refinery as a precaution following a drone strike that sparked a fire inside a massive energy complex. In terms of the risks surrounding these retaliatory strikes, does the UAE get a sense that it may be a number one target because of the relationship that it has held or continued to hold with the United States?
You're right about mentioning the refinery here in Abu Dhabi. However, also Aramco in Saudi Arabia's refinery, Ras Tanura, was struck earlier in this war. You've also had Babco in Bahrain. So in terms, and of course, LNG energy in Qatar has also been targeted. So clearly this is not just on the UAE. It's trying to inflict, Tehran is trying to inflict damage on the energy supplies of the region. On the UAE, it has had about 50% of all strikes that Iran has launched have been targeted at the UAE, and that figure includes the strikes on Israel. And it seems to be not only because of ties with the U.S. I mean, the Bahrain hosts the Fifth Fleet of the United States. You've got, CENTCOM Command is in Doha. So they would be seen as even closer to the United States. I think the UAE is being targeted primarily because it is grabbing headlines. You know, Dubai is a global city that the world looks to. The UAE has a very important role to play strategically with many countries. Its ports here are logistics hubs not only for the Gulf, but connecting India, connecting Africa. So it's really that outsized role that the UAE plays that seems to have put it further in the target list of Iran.
When we talk about potential shifting geopolitics because of these retaliatory attacks, we know that a number of Gulf nations have had different approaches to Iran in the past. And could this potentially be a moment of solidarity among many Gulf nations in feeling that they do not want to be drawn into this conflict, a moment where all of the approaches could align within these Gulf nations?
You know, they're often being called retaliatory attacks, but really they're not retaliatory from Iran because the Gulf is not part of the war. You're right that they've been drawn into it, but you don't retaliate on countries that actually haven't taken part in the attack to start with. Now, in terms of solidarity, absolutely amongst the Gulf countries, even last June when Qatar was attacked by both Israel and then by Iran, there was a statement of solidarity that came from all the Gulf countries that an attack on one Gulf country is an attack on all of them. And that has been repeated in the last 11 days here, that there is a coming together. In terms of having a relationship with Iran, all the Gulf countries tried to have diplomatic ties that worked, even when, of course, there was a lack of trust, there was concerns about what was happening with Tehran. All of them tried at one point or the other to have relationship with them. Just a few days before the war started, a senior Emirati diplomat, Lana Nusayba, went to Tehran to meet with them. Of course, Oman was a mediator between the U.S. and Iran. So they've tried different tactics. And that's why, in a great part, there is such concern that the reaction from Iran has been to take out the brunt of the attacks against the Gulf.
Finally, Mina, I wanted to ask you, the Iranian president had issued an apology to Gulf states for drawing them in some capacity in this conflict. And then we were listening into the U.S. Secretary of War this morning who said that Iran made a big mistake, his words, targeting neighbors. What do you make of those comments? Was it a big mistake? Is this something that Iran will come to regret?
I do think it's a big mistake. I mean, first, the Iranian president apologized and then retracted his apology 24 hours later. And also, he had said that we won't strike on Saturday. He said we won't strike neighboring countries. And literally within an hour of the broadcast, they were striking Doha, Qatar. So we take what he says with a pinch of salt. You're right about the idea that this is a mistake because the Gulf countries, one, were a conduit in terms of diplomacy, also have tried to help in different ways, whether hosting Iranian communities, whether having some sort of trade with Iran. I think a lot of that now will be pulled back. This war has opened many wounds in this region, and it will take a very long time to heal it. Of course, it will depend on how the war ends. What's clear from all the officials of the Gulf that I speak to is that there is a keenness to get to a diplomatic solution. They don't want this war to escalate. They don't want to escalate against Iran. And so they will still keep their hand extended, but for how long? And as the damage ramps up day after day, Iran is making more mistakes in actually getting a strategy that can get them out of this war rather than escalating further.
Mina, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today.
Thank you.
That is Mina Al-Oraibi. She is the editor-in-chief of the national and Abu Dhabi-based media outlet.